Yes, it was showing recording. There we go. It's
All right.
clicking in now.
We're good. All right.
All right. Without further ado, welcome to our, what is it, 7th or 8th Breaking Bread virtual assembly?
Number
Seven.
7.
May Breaking Bread Assembly, virtual assembly. For everybody that doesn't know, this will be recorded. So for all those that aren't able to log on today or logging on late, they'll be able to watch it at a later date and time, and we'll be able to chop it up and share it and all that. So anyway, welcome to our 7th virtual assembly, Breaking Bread. The topic today is building strength of character. And we have some amazing guests today. We have, well, I'm sorry, let me announce our reoccurring panelist. Stefan Miller is here with me.
Hello, everybody.
We also have Miss Z of Ellis Elementary, reoccurring panelist on here. And then our first special guest, or one of our special guests, is Harlan Jefferson. I'm sure you guys know or either heard of Harlan. But Harlan, if you could just tell them real quick who you are, what you do, what you're about.
Man, you know more about me than I do. But
the music man.
Rockford born and raised artist, community activist, youth activist. Just here to try to make a difference in people's lives. This way, same people that few people once made a difference in my life. That's
Thank you, bro. That was very modest, but we appreciate you, bro. I know you're gonna have some good information to share today. Also, one of our special guests today is, and correct me if I pronounce it wrong, Andrea Bragshaw. Did I get it right?
That is absolutely correct.
All right. Can you tell everybody what you do?
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Andrea Bragshaw. I am a licensed professional counselor. I am located at Counseling Associates of Rockford. We're at 6975 Redanza Drive. I too, born and raised here in Rockford. This is my 10th year being a professional mental health practitioner. However, I have worked in the social service field for the last 34 years. So seen lots of changes in Rockford over my lifetime. And obviously Rockford still means something to me because I am still here.
And we appreciate you being here also.
Thank you.
All right, so once again, our topic today is building strength of character. Also, one of our guests he told us who's gonna be a little late, and he'll be joining us later. Minister Yahcolyah Muhammad, who is an educator in Rockford. He is a minister. He is a mathematical tutor, mentor. He does a whole lot. So we're looking forward to him joining us a little later. Since we have, we got 8 participants. So fine, do you want to do breakout rooms, or do you just want to do a window of time where we stay together?
You know, with this size group, I think it's, probably best that we stay together. I think we can have a decent conversation with the numbers we got here, Berg.
Okay, I don't have a clock in front of me, but I guess we could start out with Harlan, and we just want to kind of set up a window of time to talk about the subject that he's going to speak on, and then we'll break away from that and go to Andrell, and then hopefully Yahcolyah will be on. So what do you think about 20 minutes a piece, something like that?
Well, let's go until 5:15. I have a clock. We'll go until 5:15, and then we'll kind of evaluate from there.
All right, so everybody, this is an open discussion. And we're going to start out with our guest, Harlan Jefferson, where we're going to be speaking on culture and music as it pertains to our youth, their families, the community. Bear with me, I do have some notes. Okay, so Harlan, can you just talk about some of the things that you've been doing in the community the last few years as far as creating platforms for what I just mentioned as far as culture and music, and plus some, just talk about that and what you've done in the past, how it's affected your life, how you see it affecting the lives of people in our community. You gonna touch on that some?
All right. Well, I mean, I'll start out with Levings Lake. So I run a program called Live at Levings. It takes place in Levings Lake Park in Rockford, Illinois. On summertime, we had to cancel it last year because of COVID. And prior to that, the program has been going on over 30 years in Levings Lake Park. And when I was a kid, I used to participate in it, but now I run it. So all those great things I was doing back in the day, I'm happy to still be in Rockford and contribute to Live at Levings.
Not to cut you off. Who was doing it when you participated in it back in the day?
Albert Jordan. Albert Jordan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I've heard that name.
So, we were myself, Shell Williams, Big Jimmy Wright, Ann Nesby, Ray Buchanan, a lot of artists who have came up, gone, passed, have came up through that program. It was just a great program for not just the artists, but the community in general, for all ages to come out and have a good time. And that's what I've been able to do, make a difference through that program. So we're kicking that off again this year. Starts June 13th. So mark your calendars, June 13th. We have DJ Rated AG going to bring out his production out there, his platform. It's called Soul in the Park. Poets, artists, comedians. We have giveaways and things like that. We'll be out there 6 times this year. The next day will be June 20th. We'll be moving Levings Lake to Mississippi Park in collaboration with Tommy Meek's 2-day Juneteenth festival. So he's having his Juneteenth on June 19th, that's Saturday, and he's going to also have it on the 20th. He wanted to have it 3 days last year, but because of COVID, we couldn't make that happen. But we're going to have it 2 days, and I'm collaborating with him on that Sunday. We're moving Live at Levings to Mississippi Park June 20th, and it'll be the first day of our talent show. We'll be giving away $200 total, a total of $1,600 for the whole season. And we're having a gospel tribute concert for a lot of our fallen musical heroes here in town, or anybody else that have left this earth and you just want to come out and fellowship with us. That's going to be a great time. We also bring it down Cheeseburger, Alfonso McClain, and Ron Staples from the Mighty Clouds of Joy. It's going to be a great time. We're taking it old school, quartet style, but we're going to have a large choir too on that date. And we will move on from the 20th to July 11th. We have a blues night in the park with the Red Band at Levings Lake and a fellow named Theo Huff, like a Southern blues, Sir Charles type of cat. So, come on down and get your BB King on. July 25th, we're having Big V in the park, Big V Productions, and he's bringing Damon G. Williams, comedian out of Chicago. We're going to have a great band and other activities going on for the families. The last day is going to be August 8th. No, that's not the last day. I'm sorry. The next day is going to be August 8th. We're having a natural hair beauty expo, and that's going to be interesting too. We've never had that in the park before. Something under direction of a young lady named Mercedes, and they'll be in costumes. Great folks is doing hair and from all over the place, and she'll have artists and things like that as well. And then the last one is August 22nd, which is also the talent show finals. And Brothers Too Deep will be in the park, and then we're bringing out they'll be opening up for a group called Voices. for individuals that sing, you know, do the whole Temptation thing, but they do other things as well with a full band.
Nice, nice. Hey, in the past and even currently, how have you incorporated the youth as far as involving them and what's going on at Live at Levings? How you gonna be doing that this year? And can you talk about the importance of that?
Well, I mean, just us being out in the park for the whole family is a positive thing, but you know, to break it down to the artistry, the young people that get involved in the talent shows, you know, we've always worked with them, especially if we felt that they might want to make a career out of it, to move them forward. So we have, you know, people like I forget the young man name that was on the, you know, that went on to the talent show, Prince Alonzo, and those guys, you know, started out at Levy's Lake, went on international TV and all over, you know, the country. He was even touring in Japan and things like that for a while. So, you know, it's a stepping stone. You know, I'd rather have an instrument in every child's hand than a gun, you know. It's a great stepping stone for anyone that want to be in art for any level, not just kids, but definitely kids.
Oh yeah. I have another question, but I'm gonna give anybody else a chance to ask anything they had on their mind.
Harlan, do you see our youth gravitating toward the arts again, gravitating toward picking up instruments again? I know when I was a kid, you know, you couldn't walk around the block and not hear a garage with somebody playing the drums or an entire band. In my day, it was several bands in my general little neighborhood there. So do you see that picking back up again?
I don't know in that way. I mean, more of these young kids are probably rapping and in the studio versus having instruments in their hand and in the garage. But at the same time, you know, the church community is active, and young artists are coming up in various churches still playing and things like that for sure.
How much do you think it would be an impact if we would be able to get our youth back to the old days, so to speak? If you know, if we could get the guns out of their hands and get kids picking up instruments and just revitalize that feeling again, that feeling of I don't know, unification, collaboration, instead of this individualness that we have.
I think that you know, individualness is okay. It's about utilizing that idle time. I think too many of our kids have too much time on their hands. You know, the arts definitely will keep you busy by practicing whatever it is that you do, whether it's reading material, trying to be an actor and learning that material, or practicing an instrument. It's especially if you like it and you feel yourself growing. You know, once you start feeling yourself grow, you just start doing it without parents saying, get over there and practice or whatever you need to be doing. You know what I mean? So it's about that idle time. These young people have too much time on their hand. They need to be doing something constructive. You know, even if it's mowing the lawn like you guys do with the kids, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's important to meet the kids where they are. When we talk about, you know, Mr. Miller, when you talk about getting back to where we used to be, we're not going to get back to where we used to be. I think it's important that we meet them where they are and what actually piques their interest. I particularly don't like a lot of the new music, but they like it. So if that piques their interest, then, you know, put the earbuds in and let them go with their stuff, you know. But whatever keeps them and gives them some focus. There's definitely some barriers, you know, when it comes to certain kinds of music, depending on where you are. You know, we constantly hear people talk about rap music and the language and this, that, and the other. But for those of us who are not so young, when we talk about these young kids and their music, obviously your parents never listened to someone like Millie Jackson.
Yes. Billy was something else.
Yeah.
Right.
Or
So-
Betty Wright.
Yeah, or better. So, you know,
Better
we gotta
right.
watch,
Right,
you know, so when we're
right.
being the language police, you know, we have to think back about, you know, what our parents listened to and what we listened to.
Mhm.
Absolutely, good point.
Yeah, I have
Yes.
another thought, but I know Miss Z got something. I'm gonna let Miss Z go first.
Oh, no, I was gonna say what Miss Andrell said. Those were my thoughts. Yeah, how do we compete with today's technology and gadgets that the children are so attached to, and trying to help them to develop an interest in instrumental music or any of the old school arts, and how we, you know, interpreted arts or participated in art. We do it here at Ellis, um, but there's a lot of African American history infused in it, and people have a tendency to pay more attention when you're talking about them. I found, so the children, you know, they really gravitate towards me because I offer them Jambo in the morning and they say it back to me, and it makes them feel good because it's a language that belongs to them. And so it's so refreshing to see children take an interest in themselves. And that's always been my drive, to help children to develop positive self-identity, because it's hard to move in life if you don't feel good about who you are, you know, especially in such a world of competition. And when someone else's culture or white culture is so prevalent in our society, and working in the schools for so many years, I can't tell you the number of times I've heard students say, I ain't black. They don't want to be associated with that legacy, that loathsome legacy of slavery. It's still attached to us today, you know. And so I just want to know, how do we do it? How do we get them, you know, to be interested outside of Ellis? Because they love singing I Know I Can by Nas. You know, there is some contemporary music that I find is inspiring for young people. And that's one song, I Know I Can Be What I Want to Be by Nas. So
I believe we have a student that said they have an answer. You can take yourself off mute and answer.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I feel like if you want them to like be more in like piano and guitar and stuff like that, you'll probably have to like make rap music with guitar, so that will make them like want to play it, and like they'll want to speak to it.
Awesome, awesome.
Awesome.
Harlan, maybe you can speak to that a little bit.
I mean, that's not unheard of. You know, of course, that's what a lot of people are doing these days, is incorporating live instruments with rap artists. I mean, as a saxophonist, I have done some tracks over rappers, music and things like that. That's an awesome idea for sure.
Yeah.
And people like Bruno Mars is helping keep that idea intact. You know.
Yeah. He's doing a great job at bridging the gaps too, with that old school and the new school.
Right.
So that's huge. Hey Harlan, how important was it to you when you first started learning an instrument and music and all that? I mean, were you first initially exposed to music that you actually liked? And if you weren't, how important was it, or did it make a difference when you actually learned how to play music that you liked? I mean, how was it?
I mean, it was probably more of just being exposed to music, and you know, from there, it's not too much I don't like. From every genre, almost, from classical to soul to rock and roll to jazz. You know, it's not too much that I don't like or can't appreciate, especially as an artist, because I'm diverse and I do it all. But that's about it.
Okay. Hey, we want to welcome our brother Yahcolyah. He's here. Brother Yahcolyah, feel free to jump in on the discussion. We're speaking about music and culture right now.
Oh, okay. But
Thank you for coming on, bro.
Thank you for having me. Brother Harlan is probably taking care of that topic himself, music
Oh, yeah.
coaching. Well, thank you all. I'm sorry I'm just getting here. I tried to get in as fast as I could. I had a previous engagement, but I'll listen for a little bit as you fill me in and whatever questions you have for me.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for being on, bro. And
Yeah.
jump in. It's an open discussion.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, welcome, Yahcolyah.
Thank
Hey,
you.
I'm going to break away for 1 second, but go ahead, Stefan.
All right, I'm gonna play devil's advocate just a little bit. Harlan and Andrell, you know, I know that back in our day, in our time, since we may be the seniors on this show, we
No, that would be you.
You're not taking my spot.
Our music was rather edgy at times, but we had enough love songs and enough songs about family to where I think we got the message that we were a culture and that we were a culture that we wanted to coddle and protect. But now our music seems to be going in a direction where it's more destructive to our ears, what we hear, and our hearts. And we tend to act out what we're hearing on the radio or what we see on TV and in videos. What do you guys say on that?
Okay, I got a thought. Maybe somebody can kind of help me out with this. Music for us as Black people over in the Western Hemisphere always came from a place, a lot of it came from a place of pain with slavery, and after slavery with the blues. Even though we you know, as a culture, we're have a fun lovingness about us. We enjoy good things, but we went through a lot of pain as we've been over here. And I think even the music that the kids are listening to today, a part of it comes from a place of pain, a place of misunderstanding. And then also, I would argue that it's even being sabotaged, that negativity is being pushed upon us and encouraged. We've had spots and windows of time and years where the music tended to be more empowering and encouraging. But then it always seemed like we got pulled away from that. But anyway, that's just my thoughts. I'm kind of all over the place with it.
Well, you know, it's interesting that you guys are on the topic of music. I'm literally getting ready to join a pre-Zoom. Today is the 88th birthday of Minister Farrakhan, and for his gift to the world, he's playing the Beethoven violin, and he's exposing music to us from a frame of mind that's not corporatized. We have to make a distinction between corporate-driven product and universal music that comes from the soul. I'm a mathematician, but those two languages, music and math, are universal. It doesn't matter whether you're Black, white, whether you're from the East Coast, whether you're from a continent in Far East Asia, or whether you're from Antarctica. Music is a universal language. And it's a language where we all can connect and find a harmony, a rhythm, a spirit amongst each other. What has happened to our young people is that music has been captured and fed to them, not from the spirit of universality of music, but from corporatism. You know, and so raunchiness sells, you know, the more violent sells, you know, the more controversial sells. But if you really get with a young group of people, if you go to a camp, if you get around a group of individuals and they just start vibing with each other, you'll see that the music is more communicative, it's more healing than it is what's being produced to us as a people. What we have to connect with our young people is getting them to express themselves sonically, musically, rhythmically, and expose them to all avenues of music in just not one genre, which is right now predominantly corporatized.
I think what
Okay.
we're looking at with
Very good point.
music is pretty indicative of society in general, whether it be music, whether it be television, whether it be the clothing industry, whatever it is. Right now, I believe we are going through a societal shift. And so we need to pay attention as to what direction we're going in. If you bring back, I mean, we're talking about music and the history of music, and that is Mr. Jefferson's place of discussion. However, music has been a place of pain, but music has also been a place of joy and celebration. Looking at, when you brought up slaves, looking at slaves using drum beats and what have you to communicate with one another. It has been something that has carried every ethnicity, just like Brother Muhammad says, it is universal. Music, as they say, calms the savage beast. It doesn't make a difference what beast it is, whether it be a human two-legged beast or a dog or whatever. Music has a place. It settles in a part of our brain that calms us. Music is important. So we have to look at our ability, like Mr. Jefferson said, exposing children to all genres of music. There's a couple of young men, I believe, that are on YouTube that are going back and listening to old music, and they're like all shocked and surprised. One of the biggest ones, they were listening to the introduction, Mr. Jefferson, of the Phil Collins and Genesis, and they were just going crazy over the drum beat. And I'm thinking, where have y'all been? Where have you been? And so when you expose them to those things and they realize there's more to what we've been given.
Right.
And so if they go crazy over the introduction of Phil Collins with his drums, let's look at the whole Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with all the guitar players up there and Prince just killing it on the guitar. There is so much more than what we are individually and collectively exposing our children to. I think oftentimes we are leaving them to their own demise. We have to be intentional about what we're exposing them to.
There you go. Hey, I know there's a number, not to cut you off, I'm sorry, but we have a number of students on. If you could put your name, any students that are on, if you could put your name in the chat, we will be doing a drawing first thing in the morning. And it's looking like all of you will be winners of something. We appreciate you all getting on. Feel free to join the chat. And put your first and last name, because it might be more than one Janiyah in the school. So I want to make sure that you get your name put in that drawing. There you go. Appreciate you. Any students that are on. And like I said, if you have any thoughts or questions during this chat, this is for you all. This is the main reason why we're here today. So we want you guys to be engaged. If you don't feel like saying anything out loud, you can put your questions or thoughts in the chat also. But thank you all for getting on.
You're the winner of a new car with no wheels and no engine.
We're gonna do y'all better than that. We're gonna do y'all better than that.
All right, y'all. I'm gonna give us about a 3-minute warning here on this topic, and then we're gonna move to our next topic. Okay. So let's continue to talk about this topic, but just keep in the back of our minds, we got just 3 more minutes here.
Okay.
I guess my question, I don't know, maybe more of a statement. We have a very small population of students who get involved with the arts here at Kennedy. And a lot of that has to do with how it's presented at Kennedy and how it's presented in the district overall. Harlan and the others, do you have any ideas on how we may be able to make this program better here? And do you have anyone who has the spare time to help us build this program?
You there? Everybody left.
Yeah, I'm here.
I hear we hear
We're
you,
still
Harlan.
here, Harlan.
Well, it's two different questions. I would think that there's so much available on the internet right now, documentaries and so many different things you can introduce young people to visually, from the classics of hip hop going way back, to Don't Push Me Because I'm Close to the Edge. I'm trying not to lose my head. They saying that now, and they were saying that a long time ago. And by introducing to what was showing that you're kind of spinning the wheels, it's a different time, different day, but it's really not new. It's kind of bringing up some of those documentaries and some of those things that you can find online to reintroduce what's already going on. But so many young people think they just invented this. No, this was going on before in a different way, and then kind of like moving up from there. You kind of know, you have to know where you've been before you can, really move forward sometimes. I mean, don't get it wrong. There was a hip hop group called Das Effects. I don't know if you guys remember them or not. They had that style of rap that nobody else. I mean, when you heard them perform, you knew it was them. When you heard DMX perform, you knew it was him. When you heard Biggie perform, you knew it was him. That had that own self-identity, their own voice, And they kind of was doing that because they wasn't just influencing everybody else. They became the influencers, but they had a past of what was going on before them. You guys understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
It's almost like meeting our young people where they are in their music. I mean, one things we know as educators and those of us who are lifelong learners is most of us started learning through some type of melody, whether it's our ABCs, A,
Right.
Music has always been part of our culture and our learning. It's through the arts, it's through the music, it's through the dance, it's through the fashion that we are able to carry on our tradition. So, when you're dealing with young people, I know a couple of times we brought down a brother named Brother Enoch. He did a hip hop detox, where even though it was hip hop being discussed, they detoxed all of the sexism, the racism, the materialism, and then put in the hip hop lesson something that could be good character building values that children could take with them as they left the workshop. I think about Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu and saying, you remember there used to be a show called 106 in Park?
Yes.
Well, they don't have that now. They have TikTok and they got Snapchat, but you got to catch a melody with TikTok, with Snapchat, and incorporate it into the curriculum. So you're meeting them halfway where you're still getting the concept over to the children, but it's in a way that they can understand it. That's in their time period. It's in their dispensation. And it's something that can bridge our knowledge to their new, young, youthful energy, doing it through music.
Totally agree. And you all, because of time constraints, we want to move to the next subject. But like I said, this is being recorded. We're going to share it on various platforms, social media, and school or whatever. So if you have any afterthoughts, feel free to share those when we share it on those other platforms
Yes, sir.
later today. So we're going to move on to the next topic where we're going to be talking about trauma. And we have our specialist on, Ms. Andrea Bragshaw, to talk about that.
Trauma is it has been defined as mental or emotional psychological distress due to repeated exposure to negative events. There's been a lot of research regarding trauma and its effects on students. I think Rockford, we live in an area that is riddled with trauma. We have a lot of gun violence. We have high poverty. COVID by itself is a traumatic experience for children and adults. But there has been a lot of research regarding trauma and the effects that it has on children. And as a mental health practitioner, one of the things that often bothers me is that oftentimes adults, whether they be parents, teachers, or whoever, we often look to children and students to be able to handle things that they don't understand. We look to children to be able to handle and address things that other adults don't understand. And so, trying to look at what actually is trauma, what it means, and the effects it has. Oftentimes, we will look at children who experience or act out behaviorally, and we just look at the behavior. But all behavior communicates something. And so we have to continue to dig deep to find out what is it that this child is trying to communicate that they don't have the verbal capacity to say. And so it is easier to just point out and say, that kid's a bad kid. That kid's always into something. That kid is no good. That kid is from this family. We've had problems with this kid before. It's easier to do that because then we put the responsibility back on the child. We often hear, well, this starts at home. No child asked to be born into any family. Okay. And if we are going to be out there and talking about what we're doing for our community, that includes all those kids. Okay. And whether they're biologically ours, related to us, or whatever, you have to be prepared to interact with any child on any given day.
Yes. Yes.
You never know what impact you are making on any child. It's like planting seeds. You never, ever know when they are going to take root. So be prepared to plant positive seeds. What we say to children. I had a bunch of information that I want to share, but for time, there is no way that I'm going to be able to go through all this. I'm just going to talk about a conversation that I had with someone last night. We were talking about trauma, and we were talking about the power of words. And we were talking about how a group of us, Stefan, we've known each other since we were growing up. And we were talking about how there were things that we went through, things that we endured, things that our parents did. It wasn't seen as being traumatic. It wasn't seen as abusive. And I'm not going back and trying to blame my parents or anybody else's parents. But some of the things that were said to us, if we look at them now, they were very traumatic. And one of the biggest things, we had an hour-long conversation about this, is when you attempted to say something to a parent, and the first thing they would do is they would say, "Who do you think you are?" And your answer was, "Nobody." Nobody.
Wow.
You better answer nobody.
Yeah. Words have meaning. Okay. And listen to how that sounds, and listen to, as an adult, how that feels.
That's
Right.
And go back to that 8-year-old you who was just trying to not get your behind whooped. Okay. But look at how those words progress over time, when your parents may have said it in a situation of where they were tired. They were just trying to discipline you. They were trying to make sure they had some control over you, because control meant your safety. Okay. But think about how life progressed and the rest of the world continued to tell you that you were nobody. Unfortunately, a lot of times those seeds were planted at home and they took root into the rest of the world. Okay. So there's the first Surgeon General of California, the first ever. She happens to be the first woman and the first Black woman, but she's the first ever. Nadine Burke. She has spent her entire career in the medical field working on trauma. She does a lot of work about what they call adverse childhood effects. And there's 10 basic questions. And basically what they say is that the higher you score on the ACE test shows the more trauma that you've had in your life, which is also indicative of future medical issues and concerns, heart disease, cancer, and so on and so forth. She also has a very good TED Talk. If you guys want to look at Dr. Nadine Burke and her TED Talk, one of her books is The Deepest Well, talks about trauma. And as a medical doctor, she talked about, when she first started out, a lot of children that were coming in that were either referred by teachers or parents. They thought these kids had ADHD, learning disabilities. And what they found out, that most of them were dealing with trauma.
Right.
You had witnessed or repeatedly heard about gun violence. You had a parent who was in prison. You had either witnessed or been a victim yourself of some type of sexual abuse. All of those traumatic situations continuing to be a part of your life. And then you show up at school and you're sleeping in class and you're being called lazy. Okay. You're showing up at school and you've got a bad attitude because you just left a world of hell to get to school. Okay. One of the things that we often deal with when we talk about children with behavior disorders is oftentimes the adults in their life will attempt to control that behavior. They'll go up and they'll grab a kid or they'll touch them. Those things are triggers. And we have to spend time trying to figure out who these kids are, what things have affected them negatively, what their triggers are, so that we don't re-trigger them and re-traumatize them, because that is often what we do. We are more focused on control than comfort and care.
I got a question, Dina. Can you describe for us the different kinds of trauma? Do we have time for that to describe?
Oh, like I said, gun violence, sexual abuse, drug use in the house, parents who are physically engaged in altercations, having a parent who is in jail. The list goes on and on. Not having enough food to eat, living in a household where utilities have been cut off, being bullied by peers, being bullied by other adults. The list goes on and on. The biggest issue that we've had with COVID is the fact that we've had to educate students electronically. And the scary part about that is when these kids are not before us, we have no idea what they're going through. Okay. So, we're having children, we'll have teachers say, I'm going to write this student up, or I'm going to penalize this student for not turning on their camera. Their camera may not be on because their house is a disaster. Their camera may not be on because they're embarrassed. Their camera may not be on because of who else is in their house. Children don't have control over what's going on in their world, yet we blame them for that.
You mentioned something at the top when you began to talk, Andrell, about that parent asking that child, who do you think you are? And that child saying nobody. And then that child comes to school and that child gets an F, and then another F, and then another F, and then another F. And he's heard from mom, or he's actually voiced or told mom he's nobody. And he continues to get these Fs, these failing grades. So can you speak to what that does to our children when they continue to get the failing grade?
Well, we tend, as human beings, we tend to get comfortable in anything. We even get comfortable in our own dysfunction. And when you have situations where kids are failing, it gets to be a point where they get comfortable in that failure, because if I take a chance to get better or to try to succeed in something and then I fail, then I'm hurting myself again. Okay. So, there's a, Mr. Jefferson is not on anymore, but there's an old song, I think Bobby Womack says, I've been down so long, getting up didn't even cross my mind. It's not even a thought. It's not even in your thought processes anymore. Okay. It's not who you are. It's not who the people around you are. It's not who they tell you you are. And so somebody's got to come in with this light bulb and try to shake you, not physically, because you don't want to be touching them, try to shake your thought processes to tell you that who you were is not who you have to be. Where you started out is not where you have to end up. Okay. You just have to give them a little bit of hope. And that hope includes the explanation that hope doesn't mean you're going to be perfect. Hope doesn't mean that you're never going to fail again. Okay. Hope means I'm taking 2 steps today. I'm taking 5 steps next week. I'm taking 10 steps 3 weeks from now. I'm running a marathon next year. Okay. But you're not going to do it all in one swoop. And in between the 2 steps, the 3 steps, the 5 steps, the marathon, there's going to be times where you're going to fall. And that's okay. And we have to let them know that that is okay. Okay. Excuse me. Children who deal with trauma oftentimes what we see is that they exhibit a lot of aggression. Okay, verbal aggression. They act out. They don't trust other people. Okay, they have no reason to trust. When you have been physically, emotionally, or psychologically wounded by the very people who are supposed to love and care for you, there is no way you're trusting anybody else. You know, the first people we look to build our sense of self-esteem are our primary caregivers. Sometimes as the parents, it could be grandparents, what have you, foster parents. But when you have been misused emotionally, physically, cognitively by those people, the next person that comes along, you are suspect of them.
That's right.
Yeah. Now, there's an opposite of that. There are some children who just cling to anybody because they just want somebody to pay attention to them, somebody to show them some attention. You know, and keep in mind, like I said, all behavior communicates something. When we talk about the words that we say to children, we'll hear people say, "Oh my goodness, that kid is so nosy." Most of the times when children ask questions, children are asking questions because knowing what goes on around them gives them a sense of individual control. It's not that they're trying to necessarily control anybody and everybody else. I just need to know what's going on around me. And we need to foster individual control. It helps down the line with their sense of self-esteem, controlling their self, learning to trust their own thoughts and emotions, not depending on what somebody else said. You know, hearing your own voice. Wow. Sometimes I'll hear people come in here and they'll talk to me and we'll have sessions and we'll go on and they'll say, you know, I was going to do such and such. And then I heard your voice say, and first thing I tell them is, I don't even like the sound of my own voice. The voice you should be hearing is your God's or your own voice, not mine, not anybody else's. Okay. But we live in a world where people look to others so often. What should I do? What should I say? How should I act? And that's because we haven't fostered that true sense of self and self-reflection, trust of self, and self-esteem.
Wow.
Anybody got any questions for Andrell?
I had like 2 or 3, but she covered it.
I had a couple too, but they are covered.
Yep. Hey, you know what? And this would be a good segue. Thank you, Miss Andrea. That was very informative and enlightening. And one of the things you said, this is a good segue to have Brother Yahcolyah come on and talk about parent engagement and perseverance and some thoughts that he had. But it brought me back to something Brother Yahcolyah said to me a while back, and I don't know if you remember it, but you said something along the lines of when you were raising your children, you never spoke to them in baby talk. You nurtured them and you loved them, but you never talked to them as a baby and goo goo gaga and all that. You taught them how to, or exposed them how to educate properly at a very young age. I know I'm not explaining it right, but I remember you saying that to me a while back.
Yes, baby language is what I would say. Right. It was a technique that I used with my children. I spoke to them in the same way I would speak to an adult when they were 2 days old. You know, never did the goo-goo, the gaga. We discussed math problems, getting them used to communicating. But Sister Andrea just really hit on something so critical is many of our relationships, many of our parenting skills are psychotraumatic experiences from slavery. It was once told if you write down 10 of your, immediate thoughts, 8 of them can be attached right back to our condition, our history, and our sojourn here in America and what's been imposed of us, even the way we discipline our children. Because remember, in order to conquer people, we had to think of ourselves as property or 3/5 of a human being. And so oftentimes the slave master on the plantation would reiterate to us that we were nothing and we were nobody. So, I've always, in raising my children and watching others and asking questions of raising their children, is we have to look at the word education. And then the word education comes from the Latin word educere, which means bring out of the gift that the Creator or God has placed within. So every time we're looking at a young man or a young woman, we're looking at a beautiful creation of the Creator, and we just have to mine out of them what God has placed within. And we have 3 age groups where we have to, really 2, that we have to jump on this immediately. You have from 0 to 9, 9 to 13, and then the last chance that we can make an impact before the school district really sends them out into the world is from 13 to 17. You know, you'd be surprised how many high schools I've went into and told 16 and 17-year-olds, they're only going to call your house 1 more year. Otherwise, they don't care if you show up to school or not. And by that time, we've missed them. You know, Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu talked about the 4th grade syndrome, that by kindergarten to 3rd grade, particularly our Black boys, are 98th percentile on test scores. They're doing well in reading, they're doing well in math. And by the 4th grade, there begins to be a transition. There begins to be a change where the test scores go down. By the time you see them in 7th grade, they're having these behavioral problems, they're having these test score problems. They're not as involved in school as they should be. And it dovetails right into what Sister Shaw was saying, is because by that time, not only have they experienced home trauma, neighborhood trauma, but the teachers have spoken to them with low expectations. And so that has caused them to carry themselves in a way that not only do they see themselves as nothing, but they don't see this education as being a way to bring them out of the reality that they find themselves in on a daily basis. You know, as we did in Simba, Brother Virgil, when we took the young men, you know, it starts off with a daily affirmation every day. Every day, they have to say something positive, not only to each other, but see something positive in one of their fellow brothers. And the acronym SIMBA means Safe in My Brother's Arms. And for the women, we had a young ladies program that's called Safe in My Sister's Arms. And both of those programs was designed to give young people an outlet, a way to release a lot of the trauma and the pain that the sister was just talking about that they experience on a daily basis. I remember when I first came to Rockford, traveling from DeKalb, there was a truancy program in Rockford, but the children were being penalized for missing school, but no one was addressing the cause of why they were missing school. So one of the crazy things that was happening is they were having to go downtown to the courthouse, and they were almost being ushered into a court system because they were missing school, but there were no therapists there. There were no social workers there. There was no one to meet their emotional needs and really get to the root of why they were missing school. So fortunately, that program, when Dr. Sheffield came, was disbanded, but we still didn't address the issue. And that was that young people were missing school because their needs were not being met. You know, last thing I'll say on that point is we had something called the 40 Developmental Assets. It was real popular in the early 2000s, the 2010s. I don't hear it as much in schools anymore. But there are 40 assets that all young people have and show that's part of their development. If you ask these specific questions, you can find and pinpoint where we need to meet them at their need and how we can come up with an actual success plan that can continue their assets that are already being provided, but also address those that are not being provided. And so what we did is we were able to identify children who were on the verge of being dropped out of school, kicked out of school, expelled. And we were given 3 months to turn them around. So we didn't waste any time. I know you and Brother Stephen know about this, being parent liaisons and trying to change culture. But many of these children went from having poor grades to making the honor roll, re-engaging back into their school, graduating, not being discipline problems, because we met them where they were, and we met them and provided them with assets that will allow them to be more successful in a school environment than previous before.
Wow. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts to add to what Brother Yahcolyah speaking?
I not necessarily a question, but I have a statement that I'd like to make. When we talk about looking at meeting kids where they are and giving them something to focus on, I think one of the things that I want to point out is that showing them people who look like them, what Ms. Z talked about, things like that. We recently here in Rockford made history, okay? The city of Rockford elected multiple Black women to the city council, okay? And I have not seen much about that. That was history in the making.
That's
And
right.
everyone in Rockford who stands before anyone and talks about wanting to do better for our community, wanting to focus on our youth, wanting to shine a spotlight on the positive aspects, should have been talking about that. We now have Gabrielle Torina in the 5th Ward. We have April Prunty in the 6th Ward. We have Janessa Wilkins in the 7th Ward. We have Gina Meeks in the 12th Ward, and we continue to have Linda McNeely in the 13th Ward. We also have Cameron Muhammad on the Rockford School Board. That is history in the making. And we should be jumping up and down all around and standing behind every last one of these young ladies, because the difficult part was not winning those elections. The difficult part stands before them now. The heat is coming, and anybody and everybody is going to be coming at them. They are going to be put in positions where they just cannot do the right thing. They're not going to be able to please everybody. And so we need to work very hard to support them and let them know that I don't have to agree with you 100% to support you. I don't agree with anybody 100%. Okay. But that doesn't mean that we can't support one another. And I just wanted to, make that comment that we need to focus on that. We need to let these kids, these are people from our own community.
Yeah. That's a good resource. It's like she's saying, our most powerful weapon is our unity. If we stay unified, there's so much we can accomplish. See, there is beautiful Black women, I won't say Black girl power, say Black woman power that she just expressed right there. And you can even hear it as our sister speaks. And we have to understand that that's just the beginning. Because if you combine us with other so-called minorities, we are really the majority in the city, and we can begin not only running city government, school government, but we can begin to implement policies that better help our children. One thing I would join her with role models is Dr. Juwanza Kunjufu did a workshop, you can get it on YouTube, back in 1983, 84. In 1984, one of the biggest issues young Black people had was seeing what she just talked about, positive role models. Yes, sir.
Oh, no, you good. One of the
Okay.
students said he had to go.
Oh, okay, you had your hand. Yes, sir. And so putting one thing that we always did, and Brother Virgil Stephen know, is when I meet with the young men once a week, barbers, electricians, attorneys, doctors, dads, coaches, of all people of all walks of life have to come back and give back and engage with our young people so that they can see that there is not a one monolith. We do this trick every time. We ask, name me 5 basketball players. They name me 30. I say, name me 5 football players. They name me 100. Name me 5 rappers. Then I say, name me 5 Black mathematicians, it's silence in the room. I say, name me 5 Black doctors, silence in the room. So having the ability for our people to see the diversity amongst us, that no matter what we put our mind to, we can achieve. And then, like the sister says, creating a community that if you touch one of us, you touch all of us. And people understand that allows us to be so successful.
The thing about our athletes, when you look at kids and they're able to identify various athletes, our athletes are not just athletes anymore. Our athletes are some of the smartest people in our communities. They're not just dumb jocks who can throw or catch or dribble a ball. These are young men who are actually active in their academic work. They're getting degrees and they are going on because they have learned that their athletic career is only short term. I'm going to have to do something after basketball. I'm going to have to do something after football and or baseball. And so they're not just these dumb jocks who don't have education behind them. And they are actually, a lot of athletes are at the forefront of being out in our communities and trying to get kids to a better position in life.
That's right.
You know, we got just about
Minute.
about a minute and a half. If we could just, Virgil, if you would go ahead and make sure that we thank everyone very graciously.
Yeah, you know what? I want to thank everybody, man. I could listen and talk and interact with you all, man, for a month straight. I just wanted to say one thing in line with what everybody has been saying. Man, we got some great people in position right now. We have to identify who those people are, because look, they're moving. That's how they're in position right now.
Yeah.
And we have to rally behind them and move with them. The movement has started, man. We got to bring it together. We got to rally together and utilize that strength of unity, because the ball is rolling. A lot of us got to catch up, myself included. So, man, let's get involved. Let's identify these people in position, and let's get behind them and support them and become more leaders ourselves.
Great. Hey, Andrell, Yahcolyah, thank you guys for coming
Thank you.
on. We need to
Thank
do
you.
another show. We just have only one more Breaking Bread Assembly this next month. That's our last one, but we don't have to do these during the school year. We can do them in the summer also.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so let's try to get back and do this, because it's a great combination with you two that we need to explore a little bit more.
Well, thank you. Please give Principal Redmond my love, and you all keep doing the great job that you're doing at Kennedy, and appreciate you for the invitation.
Thank
Oh
you
yeah, it's
guys.
a blessing to have her. It's a blessing to have you all. It's a
Thank you, I
blessing to be able
appreciate
to
it.
have this platform. Big shout out to Harlan too. I had some more questions for him, but I guess he had to run. Thank you, Miss Z.
You're
for
welcome.
always being there
Yes.
supporting.
Mhm.
I enjoy everyone.
Thank you.
Auntie, thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
Yeah. But
All
hey,
right,
y'all
guys.
enjoy the rest of your evening. We're gonna be talking soon. I appreciate y'all.
All right.
All right,
Thank you.
take care.
Take care, everyone.
Okay,
God
bye-bye.
bless.
Bye-bye.